Long Live Walter Jameson is one of the most thoughtful and haunting episodes of The Twilight Zone. Rather than portraying immortality as a gift, it explores it as a curse that slowly erodes a person's humanity. The episode stars Kevin McCarthy as the mysterious Professor Walter Jameson. The story opens at a college where Walter Jameson is a beloved history professor. His lectures are usually vivid. In fact, they're very unusually vivid. He doesn't merely describe historical events, he speaks about them with the detail and emotion of someone who is actually there. One of his colleagues, Professor Samuel Kittredge, begins to notice odd things about Jameson. During discussions of the Civil War and other historical periods, Jameson's knowledge goes far beyond what could be learned from books. He speaks of long dead people as though he knew them personally. Kittredge is also concerned because Jameson is engaged to marry his daughter, Susanna. While Kittredge likes him personally, he cannot shake the feeling that something about him is deeply wrong. Kittredge's suspicions grow when he examines an old Civil War photograph. To his astonishment, one of the officers in the picture looks exactly like Walter Jameson. Not merely similar, the same face, the same expression, even the same ring on his finger. When confronted, Jameson can no longer hide the truth. He reveals that he is centuries old. In fact, he's more than 2,000 years old. Long ago, he encountered an alchemist who somehow granted him freedom, excuse me, from aging. Jameson never learned the secret himself. He simply awakened one day to discover that while everyone around him continued to grow older, he remained unchanged. He claims to have lived through countless eras and even known figures from the ancient world personally. At first, Kittredge is fascinated. Like many people, he imagines immortality as a miraculous gift, but Jameson quickly destroys that illusion. Over the centuries, he has watched everyone he has ever loved grow old and die. He's been married numerous times to numerous women, started new lives, adopted new identities, yet every relationship follows the same pattern. His wife ages while he remains young. Eventually, people begin asking questions and he's forced to disappear and reinvent himself elsewhere. The result is a life of endless loneliness. Jameson admits that his immortality has not made him wiser, happier, or even more fulfilled. He's accumulated experiences, but not peace. He's exhausted by existence itself. Kittredge suddenly realizes what marriage to his daughter would mean. Susanna sees Walter as a charming, middle aged professor. But if they marry, she will grow old while Walter remains exactly the same. One day she too will become an elderly woman abandoned by her husband, who appears to have not aged a single day. Kittredge concludes that Jameson cannot truly offer his daughter a future. Although he sympathizes with Jameson's suffering, he refuses to approve the marriage. As Jameson prepares to elope with Susanna, another figure enters the story. An elderly woman named Lorette Bowen arrives at his home. She recognizes him not as Walter Jameson, but as Tom Bowen, one of the many identities he used during his endless life. Years early, she had been his wife. She is now extremely old and frail, and while he remains youthful, Lorette has spent years carrying the pain of being abandoned. She knows exactly what will happen to Susanna if the marriage proceeds. She cannot bear to watch another young woman suffer the same fate. Lorette discovers a revolver in Jameson's study and shoots him. At first, the wound appears ordinary. Then something extraordinary happens. The centuries that have been held at bay suddenly catch up with him. As Kittredge watches in horror, Jameson's face begins to age. Wrinkles deepen, his hair whitens, his body rapidly progresses through decades and then centuries of decay. The special effect was remarkable for television in 1960 and remains one of the episode's most memorable moments. Within moments, the immortal man who had survived for over 2 millennia collapses into dust. When Susanna arrives, there's no body left, only an empty suit lying on the floor. Kevin McCarthy was a distinguished American stage, film, and television actor whose career spanned more than 7 decades. He's best remembered for starring in the science fiction classic Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Kevin McCarthy was born on February 15, 1914, in Seattle, Washington. Tragedy struck early in his life when both his parents died during the influenza pandemic of 1918. He and his siblings were raised by relatives in Minnesota. His sister was the noted writer Mary McCarthy. McCarthy entered University of Minnesota, where he discovered a passion for acting while appearing in theatrical productions. McCarthy made his Broadway debut in 1938 in Abe Lincoln in Illinois. He became associated with the emerging generation of serious American actors and was among the early members of the influential Actors Studio. His breakthrough came when he portrayed Biff Loman in the stage and film version of Death of a Salesman. His performance in the 1951 film earned him a Golden Globe Award and an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Although he worked steadily in dramas, westerns, and television productions, McCarthy achieved lasting fame in 1956 as Dr. Miles Bennell in Invasion of the Body Snatchers. His portrayal of a small town doctor discovering an alien takeover became one of the defining performances in science fiction cinema. The film later achieved cult and classic status, and McCarthy remained closely identified with it throughout his life. His film career also included appearances in The Misfits, Flaming Star, Twilight's Last Gleaming, Inner Space, and Weird Al Yankovic's movie UHF. He eventually amassed more than 200 film and television credits. McCarthy was a familiar face on television from the 1950s onward. His intelligent, sophisticated screen presence made him particularly effective in roles involving authority figures, intellectuals, and men confronting extraordinary situations. He appeared in numerous television dramas, westerns, and anthology series throughout his career. McCarthy remained active well into his 90s. Fans of Invasion of the Body Snatchers particularly enjoyed his cameo appearance in later versions of the story. In the 1978 remake, he briefly appeared as the frantic man warning the public of the invasion, echoing the famous ending of the original film. He also performed a one-man stage show portraying President Harry S. Truman and continued acting in film and television almost until the end of his life. McCarthy was married twice and had 5 children. Colleagues frequently described him as generous, intelligent, gracious, and deeply devoted to his craft. He died of pneumonia on September 11, 2010, in Hyannis, Massachusetts, at the age of 96. Kevin McCarthy occupies a unique place in entertainment history. He successfully bridged Broadway's golden age, classic Hollywood cinema, the rise of television, and modern science fiction fandom. Today, he's remembered chiefly for his performance as Dr. Miles Bennell in Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Edgar Stelhi was a French-born American actor whose distinguished career spanned the stage, film, radio, and television. Though he never was a major Hollywood star, he became one of the most respected character actors of his generation, known for bringing intelligence, dignity, and authority to his roles. Edgar Stelhi was born on July 12, 1884, in Lyon, France. His mother was English and his father was German-Swiss. When he was a small child, the family emigrated to the United States, settling first in New York and later in Montclair, New Jersey. An excellent student, Stelhi attended Cornell University, earning both a bachelor's degree in 1907 and a master's degree in 1908. While at Cornell, he became active in theatrical productions and developed a lifelong love of acting. He began his professional acting career in stock theater, learning every aspect of stagecraft while taking small parts and serving as an understudy. By 1919, he had joined the prestigious Theater Guild, one of America's leading theatrical organizations. His Broadway career lasted an extraordinary 50 years. He appeared in dozens of productions and originated the role of Dr. Einstein in the original Broadway production of Arsenic and Old Lace, one of the most beloved comedies in American theater history. During the golden age of radio, Stelhi became familiar to voices in. Let me try that again. During the golden age of radio, Stelhi became a familiar voice to millions of listeners. He portrayed Dr. Hure in Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, District Attorney Anthony District Attorney Miller in Crime Doctor and the title character in Gramps. His rich, authoritative voice made him especially effective in roles requiring wisdom, intelligence, or gravitas. He entered films relatively late in life, but built an impressive resume of supporting roles. His film appearances included Boomerang, Executive Suite, The Brothers Karamazov, 4D Man, Pocketful of Miracles, and Seconds. He often portrayed judges, professors, physicians, businessmen, and other respected authority figures. Stelhi made numerous television appearances during the 50s and 60s on programs such as Perry Mason, Gunsmoke, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and Dennis the Menace. His best known television role was as Professor Samuel Kittredge in Long Live Walter Jameson. Many Twilight Zone fans continue to praise his performance in the episode, considering him one of the great character actors of the era. Stelhi was married to Emily Greeno and lived much of his life in Montclair, New Jersey. Colleagues regarded him as a consummate professional and one of the most dependable actors in American theater. He died on July 25, 1973, in Upper Montclair, New Jersey, just 13 days after his 89th birthday. At the time of his death, he was the oldest living member of the Actors Equity Association. Today, he's remembered as one of America's great character actors, a performer whose intelligence, versatility, and quiet authority enriched every production in which he appeared. While he has rarely received star billing, his work in theater, radio, film, and television left a lasting impression on audiences for more than half a century. The script deals with immortality. The entire cast all lived exceptionally long lives. Kevin McCarthy lived to be 96. Estelle Winwood was 101 when she passed away. Edgar Stelhi passed away shortly after turning 89, and Dodie Heath died at the age of 96 in June of 2023. Coincidentally, the character portrayed by Kevin McCarthy in this episode mentions the date of September 11th. McCarthy died on September 11th, 2010. Actor Kevin McCarthy occasionally cited his performance in this episode, playing a character who was immortal, as seemingly having come true in his own life, as he remained in good health and continued to act while outliving most of his family and colleagues as he approached the age of 100. McCarthy died September 11, 2010, at the age of 96, having earned an acting credit as late as the year he died, more than 50 years after this episode was produced. The interior living room and front door entrance set from the first act is the living room of George in the Time Machine. The original wood paneling from that film has been painted white, but is otherwise obviously the same set, albeit without the Victorian dressings. The same set also appears in other first season episodes of The Twilight Zone. Among a handful of Twilight Zone episodes to exclude the series title in the closing narration. Other episodes to do this include Just Bell 1963, which had no closing narration at all. On Thursday We Leave for Home in 63, The Four of Us Are Dying 1960, and He's Alive 1963. This is the only episode in which the phrase The Twilight Zone is not used either in the opening or closing narration. When Jameson and Kittredge resume their game of chess, Jameson has captured Kittredge's queen, leaving what would be a highly uncompetitive game. Once Jameson has made his first move of the evening, as Kittredge takes hold of Jameson's hand, the black queen suddenly appears on the board, on the square e5, and there are white pawns on the square e4 and f5. After the next reverse shot, as Jameson says, "Come on, Sam," the black queen and those two white pawns are no longer on the board. Professor Jameson says that William Tecumseh Sherman's men hated him more than any rebel. Letters from the soldiers during and after that war prove that he is almost universally untrue. They called him Uncle Billy, and he was known to stay in contact with some and even help others infrequently. Kevin McCarthy's transformation from middle-aged man to old man on screen without any cutaways was accomplished by applying red-colored age makeup to McCarthy's face and then lighting the set with red key lights, which disguised the age makeup. As the scene progressed, the red key lights were gradually replaced with green lighting, a change imperceptible to the black and white film which the scene was shot, but which McCarthy's face appeared to age spontaneously, something that normally couldn't be done in early 1960s technology without taking the camera off the actor for at least a brief cutaway. The theme of Long Live Walter Jameson from the Twilight Zone is far deeper than a simple warning about immortality. On the surface, it asks whether living forever would be desirable. Beneath that, it explores the relationship between time, love, loss, identity, and the meaning of life itself. Many people imagine immortality as the ultimate gift. It promises freedom from aging, disease, and death. Walter Jameson appears to possess exactly what humanity has sought throughout history. Yet the episode gradually reveals that immortality is not liberation, but imprisonment. Walter has lived through centuries of human history. He's witnessed empires rise and fall, wars begin and end, and generations come and go. He's accumulated more experiences than any ordinary person could imagine. But these experiences have not brought him happiness. Instead, they brought him exhaustion. The episode suggests that the fantasy of eternal life overlooks a crucial truth. Living forever means watching everybody else die. One of the episode's most profound themes is that death gives significance to life. Human beings make choices because time is limited. We fall in love because opportunities are finite. We pursue goals because our years are numbered. We cherish relationships because they cannot last forever. Walter has no such limitations. Paradoxically, unlimited time has diminished the value of experience. After centuries of repetition, nothing feels unique anymore. New friendships resemble old friendships. New loves eventually become old losses. The episode implies that mortality creates urgency, and urgency creates meaning. Without an ending, life becomes an endless series of chapters with no conclusion. The greatest burden Walter carries is not endless life, but endless isolation. Every relationship follows the same tragic pattern. He meets someone, he falls in love, they grow old, he remains young, he must leave or watch them die. The cycle repeats over and over and over for centuries. As a result, Walter exists outside the normal human experience. He cannot truly belong to any generation because every generation eventually disappears. His immortality separates him from humanity itself. The episode suggests that meaningful life requires shared experiences and shared destinies. Walter can share experiences, but he can never share destiny. An interesting reversal occurs in the story. Most people fear aging. Walter cannot age. At first, this seems inevitable, but the episode transforms it into a source of suffering. Aging is not merely a physical decline, it's part of the natural rhythm of life: childhood, youth, maturity, old age. Walter is trapped outside of that rhythm. He cannot progress naturally towards completion. While everyone around him changes, he remains frozen. The episode presents aging not as a failure of life, but as an essential part of life. Rod Serling frequently explored humanity's attempts to exceed natural limits. In this episode, immortality represents a violation of the natural order. Walter's existence has interrupted the cycle of life and death. As a result, he finds himself stranded between worlds, not fully part of the living, unable to reach the peace of death. The story echoes ancient myths such as the tale of the wandering Jew or the Greek myth of Tityros, who received eternal life but not eternal youth. The lesson is not that life is cruel because it ends. The lesson is that life deserves or derives much of its beauty from the fact that it does end. The episode is also a meditation on love. Walter generally genuinely loves Susan, just as he likely loved many other women before. But every relationship is doomed from the beginning because time affects them differently. Professor Kittredge recognizes this immediately. His objection is not based on hatred or prejudice. He understands that Walter cannot offer his daughter a normal future. A marriage assumes that two people will travel through life together. Walter cannot do that. He can accomplish someone for a while, he can accompany someone for a while, but eventually they will age while he remains unchanged. The tragedy is that Walter's love is real, yet it can never be fully shared. One might assume that living for thousands of years would produce enlightenment. Walter certainly possesses knowledge. He has witnessed history firsthand. He remembers events that scholars only study. Yet he is not wise in the traditional sense. He has learned facts, but not contentment. And this distinction is important. The episode argues that knowledge and wisdom are not the same. Understanding history does not necessarily provide happiness or meaning. Walter knows more than anyone else, but he envies ordinary people who can live normal lives and eventually find rest. When Walter rapidly ages after being shot, the scene is often interpreted as punishment, but it can also be referred to as release. For centuries, he's carried the burden of endless existence. The accelerated aging sequence is horrifyingly visual, yet emotionally it represents something different, the completion of a journey that should have ended a long, long time ago. For the first time in 2,000 years, Walter is allowed to become whatever a human being eventually becomes, mortal. The final image of dust is not simply a reminder of death, it's a reminder that Walter has finally rejoined the natural order from which he had been separated. At its deepest level, Long Live Walter Jameson argues that the value of life comes not from its length, but from its limits. Walter Jameson has everything people think they want: endless youth, endless time, endless opportunity. Yet he lacks the one thing that gives those gifts meaning: an ending. The episode leaves viewers with a paradoxical conclusion. Death is not merely the end of life, it's one of those things that make life precious in the first place. This episode is a very powerful one to me because I know everybody seems to either fear death or, at an older age, eventually accepts death as a conclusion. But as one who has lived with the fear of death and wanting to live forever, this brings about that knowledge that maybe it's not the best idea. Walter Jameson lived through 2,000 years, married multiple times, watched people that he knew die while he didn't. That's where life becomes a little more logical in the fact that we do get born, we live, we die. To be able to watch friend after friend for year after year, decade after decade, century after century, millennia after millennia pass away, and you continue on. It's kind of a tough road to hoe. In this episode, I give this a 4 out of 5. It's a very intriguing episode, very entertaining, and I will say that I agree the special effects in this episode are very well done for 1960. I hope you'll enjoy it.